Susan Johnson. I'm wearing Pride colors. The movie I wanted to talk about tonight, and it might end up being just another commentary, is the Matthew Shepard story from 2002, starring Sam Waterston and Stockard Channing. If you hear me say Sam Shepard or Sam Elliott, please forgive me, because I will do that on occasion. It's just the way I am with the Sam actors, I guess. I don't know why. Anyway, let me try to hold my camera to... one of the reasons I'm wearing a Oaxacan dress is, or two of the reasons, is because I hate Donald Trump and I support our families who are being torn apart right now. 2,300 people have suffered so far because of this bullshit that Donald Trump's doing to families of immigrants. I come from a family of refugees. That's why I'm always in support of Syrian refugees, because back in the day when my people needed help, the Syrians were there for them. So, and I appreciate Mexican culture, and I have Mexican relatives, and I don't appreciate Donald Trump's treatment. I don't appreciate the culture that he has cultivated in our country since he took office. And that's kind of why I focused on the color blue, because I feel kind of blue. Before we get into the movie, which I'm terribly sorry, but this is stuff I have to talk about. It's relevant to the movie. And please forgive the camera shaking a little bit, because that's my hand that's weaker. For the first 8 years of Gabriel Fernandez's life, he lived happily with his grandparents because his mother couldn't get it together, and she was probably, I don't know, I don't want to make assumptions, but I don't know, I just don't know. Anyway, one day she came waltzing back into their lives and said, "I want my son back," and the courts sided with her and said, "Yeah, you have to give him back. You don't have any legal right to him, even though you raised him. And you raised him to be a well-adjusted little boy." She got him back. And from that minute on, Gabriel's life was hell on earth. This woman who pushed him out of her vagina, when that's all she did for him, this woman and her boyfriend proceeded to beat, torture, belittle, humiliate, and then finally murder this little boy over the course of about 8 months. And the reason why, according to them, because he seemed gay. 8 years old and he seemed gay. This is the ultimate hate crime. The Matthew Shepard case was horrifying. But Matthew was a legal adult. Matthew knew he was gay. He was openly gay. And no, there's still no excuse. Matthew should be alive today. But Gabriel was a little boy, 8 years old, completely completely had no say in his life. He had no say in the decision. His mother forced the courts to give him back to her, and his grandparents were heartbroken, and they did nothing but slowly kill that child over 8 months. They forced him to eat cat poop. They forced him to eat his own vomit. They starved him. They burned him with cigarettes. They bound him and gagged him and forced him to sleep in a cabinet, probably no bigger than one of those end tables at the foot of your bed or at the side of your bed. They shot him with BBs. They found BBs lodged in his chest and in his groin and his scrotum. When the nurses and the hospital staff examined him as he lay dying in the emergency room, they all said that it was the worst case of child abuse, the worst brutal beating that they had seen. He had a fractured skull. He had injuries from the top of his head to the bottom of his feet. Injuries that were so grotesque that nobody wanted to show them on television or I appreciate a lot of culture, but every culture needs to get the fuck over your homophobia and start acting like real men and love your sons and your daughters for who they are. I have no tolerance for this behavior. So the stepfather or the boyfriend or whatever the title you want to give him, he got death this month, June of 2018. It took over 5 years for this case to finally end with him getting the death penalty and that piss poor excuse of a mother getting life. She should have gotten death too. She was not sorry. The way she read her apology in court, she was not sorry. Why is this so personal to me? Because that little boy reminds me of the character I wrote in my first novel. He was chained to a bed. He was forced to use a bucket as a toilet. He was never allowed to leave that room. He was sexually exploited, raped, used in pornographic films, beaten, starved. And this kid, this real life boy, Gabriel Fernandez, was treated even worse. I don't write fiction. I write what's really going on in the world. That's the damnable shame of it all, is that what I write isn't fiction. People are so busy focusing on, well, she writes gay books, she's nasty, she's a pervert. Focus on how I write also about how people abuse children, because that's what I'm doing. I'm writing about reality. It really happens. That book I wrote was eerily similar to the Matthew Shepard case, and I knew a little bit about the Matthew Shepard case, but I was not as aware of gay. I was not as hyper vigilant or hyper aware of gay LGBT issues as I am today. I just started writing a book out of the blue, and I got homophobia aimed at me for the very first time in 2011, and before that I was just a regular person. In 2011 I found out I was ace, but I feel like I know what it's like to be hurt in that way. I've been ostracized. I've been threatened. I've been made assumptions about. And it really hurts. I don't understand people who could do those things to a child. But they do those things to a child. And you see these movies, they make you angry. That's exactly what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to make you angry. These stories, they're not feel-good stories. I believe in the death penalty, and I'm very glad that S04E07 got the death penalty. I'm really glad. He deserves it. And Gabriel Fernandez deserves it too. I feel bad for the grandpa. I feel bad for the biological dad. He feels bad. He should have been there, he said. But he didn't have his life together either, so... The Matthew Shepard movie... These people, like Fred Phelps, who thankfully is dead now and nobody misses him that has any brain cells, but he had the audacity to bring his church and their hateful signs held up at the funeral of Matthew Shepard. All their hateful signs and slogans. And luckily, Matthew's great friend Romaine Patterson and a bunch of his other friends in his community had a group. They organized it and they called it Angel Action, and they dressed up in these beautiful costumes with these just wingspans of white to block out those ugly, hateful signs. Fred Phelps picked up his church and went home, back to Kansas where he belongs. The main plot of the movie is basically Matthew's life. Even before this horrible tragedy, his life was not easy. You know, it's tough being an LGBT person and having to come out to your family. And luckily, Matthew's mom was extremely supportive. It was difficult for her, but she knew it. She knew he was gay, and it was easier for her. The father had a little bit more trouble with it. I guess that is just the way it is. But he still loved him and accepted him. He didn't want Matthew's sexual orientation to be the whole thing about who he is. I guess that's the point that Sam Waterston's performance was trying to make. And they showed the incident in Morocco where Matthew was gang raped, and they didn't mention the fact that he was HIV positive, but that has nothing to do with anything. He shouldn't be. That wasn't their motive anyway. They pretended to be gay. They lured him into their company, and then they proceeded to rob him and then beat him and murder him. And they tortured him. They beat him senseless. They beat him until he was brain dead practically. And when it came time for them to decide on the death penalty for these two thugs who beat Matthew Shepard, Sam Waterston's character, Dennis Shepard, and Judy Shepard, played by Stockard Channing, they had the big dilemma and the big conflict about, does the death penalty even mean anything? Will it change anything? Matthew's dead. He's not going to come back to life if we kill these two boys. That was Judy's stance, and Dennis's stance was, I need to see these two pay the ultimate price. And again, I'm a big believer in the death penalty. I may be liberal, I may be leftist, but there are things that I believe in that seem a little right, you know what I mean? And the death penalty is definitely one of them, especially in cases like this, like Matthew Shepard, like Gabriel Fernandez, when it's pure, unadulterated hatred, and the circumstances being as they are in these cases, kill them. That's my opinion. Just kill them, and I mean quickly. Don't give them all these years of appeals and shit when the evidence is stacked against them, and it's there and it's damning. Kill them. It is a beautiful film. I really recommend it, and I'm really sorry for talking about all the other topics, but they all go together. I hate child abuse. I hate parents who beat their children and make their lives miserable. And I hate homophobia, and I hate the intolerance, and I hate the racism, and I cannot fucking wait for Trump to be out of that position. I want him gone. If they re-elect him, I'm going to fucking throw a fit. Whatever you're brought up to believe, you need to question it, and God gave you that right to question it, and not to be afraid of the men who shove it down your throat that you're not supposed to question it. I'm tired of people using a book, a piece of literature. I don't force that book on anybody. I know people are raised differently, and I respect all religions as long as they don't hurt anyone. And people who use the religion I was brought up in to hurt people, I have no respect for you. I don't have any respect for nasty, venomous gossip. And I have no respect for hate crimes done in the name of Jesus or Allah or whatever. You are slime when you do that. And if you think God approves of you, you're dead wrong. For Pride Month, if you don't watch any other movie, watch the Matthew Shepard story. I also recommend the Laramie Project. That's a really good one. The HBO film, probably from around the same period. But the Matthew Shepard story is more about his life rather than the aftermath of the crime. The Laramie Project was pretty much a lot of people descending on the town and talking to the townspeople and getting a feel for what that town's about. And I think the Matthew Shepard Project it gives you more of a look at the person. He wasn't just a victim. He wasn't just a headline. He wasn't just a global atrocity. He was a human being. He had a life. He had plans. He had goals. He had a beautiful, sensitive spirit. He had a lot of sympathy for the black man in Jasper, Texas, who was dragged to death behind these racist white guys' truck. That was a horrific case too, and he talked to his mom about it not too long before he himself was murdered. And he was a person who was alive. He was very alive, and then suddenly he was gone. So, yeah, the Matthew Shepard story, 2002, starring Sam Waterston and Stockard Channing. I'll put the rest of the cast up as soon as I get the video all done up. Bye for now.